Yes. Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. You're watching In Deep on the Delta. This is the weekly report for the week of August 10th. We'll go over real quick river conditions. We'll talk a little bit about stripers, then we'll get right into the largemouth bass. We'll go over the snag-proof tournament and the Tuesday night lunkers tournament. I'll let you know what I'm doing, and I'll give you a report on some of the information that I've got through the week. Not a whole lot going on as far as river conditions changing out here. The only thing that I could see, and remember I was gone for about 4 days this week down in San Luis Obispo at a family wedding. That was a great time. I'm hearing the call of the river already, so I've been back. I started fishing Tuesday again, but I only got out once this week. And the one thing that I saw was I got 74-degree water temps when I went out in the morning. It picked up to about 76. But when I left, the water temperatures were around 80, 81 degrees. And I don't like this. I know I talked to some people who said we had some wind, and I noticed that the nights have been cooler. The days are still in the 90s. But what I don't like to see, and what's happened all year long, is temperatures get up to whatever it is, 80, 82, and they drop 6 or 8 degrees in 2 or 3 days. We've had some 8 and 10 degree water temperature changes earlier in the year. As the water was rising, we'd get a cold front move in, and all year the water temps are going like this. And I don't care if it levels out at 75 or 85 degrees, those are within the parameters that these big Florida bass in the Delta will feed on and feed vigorously on. But they like consistency, and that's not what we've had on the river. Some of it has just been due to a cooler than average summer, and I think some of it is that we've had a ton of snowpack, so a lot of the water that's coming in could be a little cooler. And as we get these hot spells, we get more snow melt, and the river water coming down the Sacramento and the San Joaquin are a little bit cooler. For whatever reason, we've had these drastic temperature changes, and it's a little bit annoying to me, and I think that's part of the reason we haven't had consistent fishing down here. Take that for what it's worth. Very briefly, I talked to Alan Fong about the stripers. He was doing pretty well up around the Liberty area and the sloughs up there. Kind of slowed down a little bit, but he did report there is some good fishing taking place for the trollers around the Rio Vista area, and there's still some very good fishing out in the bay, all the way from Rio Vista, out to San Francisco Bay. So the fish are out there. The fish that we're getting here in the Central Delta and the North Sacramento up there, they're pretty much resident fish, and we're just waiting for that big slug of fish to start moving in, and when it does, we'll start getting some reports, and I'll let you guys know what's going on striper fishing. All right, let's talk about the snag-proof tournament that we had last week, the frog tournament. I just want to relay, for those of you who may not know it, they're snag-proof. The frog tournaments are 3 fish limits, and they're 2-day tournaments. So we're talking about a 2-day 6-fish limit. About 84 pro boats and about 60 amateur boats fish the snag-proof. 25.64 won the pros, and 19.97 won the amateurs. And I want to just congratulate the winners, Austin Wilson and Kirby Wallace for the pro side, and then Mario Blackwell and Louis Spalling. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, but they won the amateurs. I talked to Rob Cloutier, who fished both tournaments, and his take was that the fishing for the snag-proof was better as far as numbers, and obviously they had a little better weights, but the numbers were better. The bite was on a little bit better. Still not what it should be for Delta conditions this time of year. Rob is saying what everyone else is saying. He's getting big fish to come up and blow up, but he's got a very I'll just call it a low percentage rate for hookup. And you know, the hookup rate for frog fishing is not great at any time, but this year, I mean, from start to finish, everybody's saying the same thing. I'm getting big fish to blow up, but they're not really inhaling it. The only thing I could say is maybe a late spawn. Maybe some of these fish are still in post-spawn, and as the summer continues on, these fish will get more and more active, and then when they come up and grab these frogs, they're going to eat them. Because when a fish comes up to take a frog, when it wants to eat it, it's going to eat it. They don't miss them very often. They're missing them and not connecting with the baits. Now, it's not the fishermen, it's the fish. When they want these frogs, they're going to come up, and you're going to start finding them down here and not, you know, up in the top of the lip. So let me go over this snag-proof tournament. Better fishing. I noticed the amateurs struggled a lot more than the pros, which is not a big deal, but the amateurs caught bigger fish than the pros. They had an 8.6 come in on the amateur side. The team that won it with 19 pounds had an 6.8 and a 5.6. 6.8 on one day, 5.6 on the other day. And so, you know, for their 20 pounds, what is that, 12? Yeah, about a little over 12 pounds was part of that 19 and 20 pound limit. So the rest of their fish were pretty small. On the pro side, they had 25.6 pounds. Their big fish was 4.4. So their average fish was a very solid 4.4, you know, 4 pound plus fish. That's pretty darn good fishing. Problem was lack of big fish. The big fish of the tournament was caught on the amateur side with an 8 pound something, but I don't think there was a 7 pound fish caught, 3 or 4 6 pound fish, and 3 or 4 5 pound fish. And those were out of, you know, 150 teams fishing 2 days. That's not Delta fishing. Let's move along to the Tuesday night Lunkers tournament. This is a 5 or 6 hour tournament going out of Lazy M. They had 13 boats, and 20.7 won that tournament with a 6.3 kicker. But after that, first place second place was down to 13.4. So, you know, pretty darn respectable for a short tournament. 20 pounds is not bad, but again, I think we're all looking to see these 25 and, you know, 25 to 30 pound bags, and the Delta just hasn't been producing them so far. So those were the tournaments. A little better than, you know, the tournament weights are creeping up little by little, but still not what we'd like to see them on. I'll start off with a report from one of my weekly contributors. I want to thank Hook Setters for sending me so many reports and detailed reports. And I got a picture of Hook Setters here with another nice fish. You've seen him on, you know, on the report before, holding up some really nice fish throughout the year. And what Hook Setters is catching these fish doing is punching, a lot of them punching. And punching has not been a great, it hasn't been a good year for punching. But Hook has been fishing down south. I don't know. Geez, I see a fish come swimming by. Sorry, I see a squirrel over here. He's been punching, and he said that he's liked to punch and frog, both punching and frogging. Most of the time we're punching and frogging in a lot of the same areas. He's catching his fish in 2 feet, 3 feet of visibility, and that's what he thinks his success has been. But I'll tell you, I don't know what it is, Hook. You're out there catching fish, and there's a lot of people down south that are just crying that, you know, nothing's happening. So I wanted to throw that in because you've seen Hook throughout the year, and he's catching fish, he's catching them punching, and he's catching them down south. With that being said, the standard reports that are coming in throughout the week, people are catching plenty of fish, but there's a lot of small fish. It is a junk fishing type situation out here, and you're going to have to, I don't care what you're doing, punching, frogging, throwing big baits, small baits, whatever you're doing, you're going to have to wade through a lot of small fish in order to get those quality fish. And quality fish right now are in the 3 to 4 pound class. If you can put a limit of 4 pound fish in the boat, During a tournament, you're probably going to cash a check. And what is not happening right now is those big 7, 8, 9, 10-pound fish, just not happening. If you're not familiar with the Delta, if you are a novice angler, if you've been struggling on the Delta, I'm going to ask you to do some things that I normally would not ask you to do. Number one, don't come out here with big swim baits. That's something I would probably tell everyone on the Delta, unless you're a headhunter and you know what you're doing. It's tough, big bait fishing on the Delta when you are not in tune with what's happening. Punch rod, you want to bring it, put it under deck, and don't take it out. If you're a hardcore puncher and the only reason you're coming to the Delta because you get no chance to punch anywhere else, by all means, go ahead and punch, but expect to catch a lot of fish, and you're not going to catch any bigger fish punching than you'll do with any other technique out here. So I would keep those two under the deck. I would keep a frog rod on, but I would use it sparingly. If you happen to be out here on a day that the frogfish are feeding, you could have some pretty decent action. But if you're just coming up here and you're picking one day, the day that you have to fish during the month to come out here, I wouldn't be throwing a frog. Just not enough action. Again, if you can't frog fish at your normal lakes and you're coming down here just to throw frogs, throw them, but expect it to be a grind. Here are the three things that you can expect to catch most of your fish on, and you can catch good numbers of fish. You'll have to wade through those numbers, but you'll catch some big fish in the process. My number one topwater bait for the last month has been this little black Rico. I continue to throw that Tuesday morning. I had about 45-minute bite window in the morning. I caught a couple of 3.5 pound fish with that. I had a big blow up that I lost, and I caught some smaller fish. That is outproducing by far whopper ploppers, bigger walking baits, any other topwater bait. What you can substitute for that Rico is a small bubble walker or a papa or something like that. Keep it under 3 inches long. Fish it slow with long pauses in between your twitches. The second bait that I have been catching fish on has been a chatterbait. Just keep it in green pumpkin colors, something that's going to look like a crawdad, oranges, blacks, like I said, green pumpkins, anything that's going to show like a crawdad out there. That's a pretty consistent bait, and I've been getting more fish on that the last week and a half than I have the, what do I have? I've been throwing that horny toad quite a bit. I'm getting more fish kind of moving to the chatterbait. I did talk to Alan Fong. Alan said that he's been doing well out north, out around Liberty, but again, that is a touchy place. If you don't know the tides and you don't know that area, don't go by what Alan's saying. Alan knows that place better than any, and he can put fish in the boat when most people can't. But Alan has been fishing large flats in shallow water, sometimes only 2 feet of water, and he is throwing both chatterbaits and spinner baits. When he has good water clarity, he will throw a chatterbait. When the water is clouded up, he'll throw the spinner bait, and he is just working over these flats, and he's looking for flats with moving water. Just thought I'd throw that in. So we got the chatterbaits going there. Last but not least, as I was out on Tuesday, I had a pretty good morning bite, got some action. The bite slowed down. I started throwing a chatterbait. I caught a few fish. It was basically fishing rock walls and troughs. And as that bite I could see was going to be a grind, I decided that I would throw a worm. I haven't thrown a worm in a long time. So I started fishing the edges of hyacinth and places that had a little, maybe a rock bank that had a little shade on it. And I immediately started catching fish. The setup that I was using was just a standard, what do we call this, wacky rig. And I haven't used it in so long I forgot what you call it, wacky rig. And I'm using a Yamamoto 5-inch worm. This is a watermelon red flake, and I never took this off. I will say that I've got this VMC crossover ring that I talked about. If you haven't saw my video on the VMC crossover ring. Check it out. The more I use this, the more I'm liking it. I said as soon as I put this on, I started catching fish. They weren't all big fish, a lot of 10-inch fish, but I was catching 7 or 8 fish on one worm. With that being said, fished it about an hour and a half, and I probably put 25 fish in the boat. I had 4 keeper fish, 2 of them just over the 13. I'm guessing that they were 13¼ inches, just barely tournament keeper fish. And then 2 other fish were about 2½ pounds. And I think I could have consistently done that through the course of the day by just worming. Some of you who are weekly watchers of the channel may notice I did not put up a video on Tuesday. No, I am not being affected by the writer's strike in Hollywood. As you know, I do most of my own filming and most of my own editing. I will be working, well, I am working on several productions, let's call them productions, several videos coming up. So expect, pretty routinely having something to watch from In Deep on the Delta, posting on Tuesday nights about 4 o'clock, and I've got some interesting stuff. We're going to talk about some Delta related stuff, and we'll talk about some general bass fishing stuff. I might even do a few reviews coming up as I'm finding some baits, newer baits that I'm having luck with, and I'll pass that information on to you guys. So thank you guys so much for watching. Good luck out here on the river. You guys that are coming up for the big kayak tournament in a couple of weeks, man, come up here with the intentions of working hard and grinding. You should get paid off for it. I think that's going to be a great tournament. I'm going to really want to come out to the weigh-in. I hopefully meet some of you kayak guys that are coming from out of the area. So with that, good luck on the Delta, and we will see you guys next week, Thursday, about 4 p.m. Good luck.